Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Words tonight that many Americans have been waiting to hear as President Trump says dozens of states could reopen relatively soon.
We're starting our life again. We're starting rejuvenation of our economy again in a safe and structured and very responsible fashion.
The president announcing a plan to reopen the economy, but he now says it will be up to the governors to decide when they should open their states. President Trump says the U.S. has passed the peak of COVID-19 infections as he unveiled his plans for reopening. Skylar Henry is at the White House with more.
President Trump released new guidelines intended to ease states into reopening.
America wants to be open, and Americans want to be open. A national shutdown is not a sustainable long-term solution.
The guidelines are divided into three phases. Phase 1 maintains strict mitigation, while phases 2 and 3 soften those restrictions. The president presented his plan in a conference call with state governors, who will decide when to implement each phase.
Governors will be empowered to tailor an approach that meets the diverse circumstances of their own states. Every state is very different.
The president also held calls with members of Congress, inviting dozens from both parties to join his task force for reopening the country.
President Trump lashed out at Democratic leaders on Twitter, accusing them of playing politics over the Paycheck Protection Program, which he says is out of funds. The relief program guarantees forgivable loans to small businesses who keep employees on the payroll.
We need people to stay attached to the companies that they were working at prior to the COVID crisis.
Democratic leaders continue to negotiate additional funding with Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, demanding fixes to the program and more money for states and hospitals. Skylar Henry, CBS News, the White House.
It was also announced today that Montana Senator Steve Daines was chosen by President Trump to join a bipartisan White House task force. Daines will provide counsel to President Trump in order to safely reopen America in the wake of COVID-19. Montana Governor Steve Bullock quick to respond, but doesn't appear ready to take quick action to reopen. Bullock said in a statement, early actions across the state help slow the virus, which he says will allow us to resume our economy to as much normalcy as possible when the time is right. He says he's already been in discussions with public health and emergency response officials and business leaders in the state on a responsible, measured, and gradual path forward to do so. There are 11 new confirmed cases of COVID-19 across Montana tonight. We've also learned that the virus has taken another life here in our state. That death confirmed from officials out of Toole County, which now brings the total number of deaths there to 4. The latest numbers on the Montana COVID-19 map shows a total of 415 confirmed cases and 7 deaths, but we do know tonight that that total has reached 8. In Wyoming, the latest numbers show 296 people have tested positive. 2 people have died there. Yesterday, Governor Mark Gordon instructed all state agencies to cut spending until the end of the budget year. He directed them to freeze all positions and halt general contracts above $100,000. Wyoming's budget is in place until June 30th. Well, usually this is an optimistic time for Montana's tourism industries. Lodges, hotels, and outfitters begin booking for the months ahead. However, as MTN's Dennis Bragg reports, the pandemic is creating panic in an industry which brought $3.7 billion to the state's economy last year.
The troubling trends come from the latest survey by the University of Montana's Institute for Tourism and Recreation Research.
And we could see from early March, the concern about individuals' health was hovering around 60%. By the end of March, that was about 85%.
As COVID-19 was spreading across the country in late March, businesses in the survey said future bookings began to dry up. 63% reported 0 bookings for April. 61% had 0 bookings for May. Nearly half had none for June. And 21% said they had 0 bookings for July and beyond. Other data show that 66% of tourism-related businesses have temporarily reduced their workforce. 57% have temporarily closed some or part of their business. And 3% say they've already closed for good.
Right now, we're seeing cancellations from these visitors and what they're telling us up through May largely. And that tapers off a bit through June as folks are waiting to see what happens out there. but a lot of them are saying that they're wavering right now on those June, July trips.
And our parks are huge. If Yellowstone and Glacier were to stay closed, I don't know, that's a scary, scary thought.
And the fear isn't just lost traffic, but lost businesses throughout the sector. A deep downturn may ripple across the industry, wiping out everything from guides to gas stations, especially in smaller towns.
What that hotel, that lodge gives you access to, which is all the various amenities.
This isn't a surprise, though, is it? I mean, in terms of the visitor reaction to this, I guess that uncertainty always kind of figures into this, doesn't it? We've seen it in the past with, gas prices and all kinds of factors.
Right. I mean, visitors are consumers, and they're not consuming trips, consuming these destinations.
Yet one number offers a glimmer of hope.
The number of zero bookings reduced. In other words, it was getting better in the minds of the business people that July and August have some hope. There's hope out there for them because the door hasn't slammed shut yet.
In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Dennis. Unemployment numbers across the United States have soared past 22 million. Here in Montana, people out of a job are starting to see state benefits kick in, along with the temporary $600 a week federal benefits. Now, this week, Montana began paying the extra unemployment insurance provided by the CARES Act. So far, some $30 million has been issued to Montanans through federal and regular unemployment claims. But still, this additional insurance is not being distributed to the self-employed. Under the legislation, anyone receiving unemployment benefits is eligible for the additional $600 a week stimulus payment. That money is earmarked until July. Well, many who are out of work and waiting on compensation might feel uneasy about what to do until benefits do arrive. Experts say there are some ways to cope. They say keep applying for unemployment benefits, although lines and wait times may be long. Tap into emergency savings, but also remember that saving is important, and look for ways to cut back on expenses. You can pause memberships and cancel subscriptions. Contact your mortgage lender and student loan provider for hardships, and take advantage of relief programs for rent, utilities, and prescription drugs. Well, to help students, the Montana Board of Regents is temporarily adjusting admission requirements for public universities. The board held a conference call this afternoon, agreed to waive the requirement that all students applying to a four-year university have to submit an ACT or an SAT score. Now, this change would allow students to prove proficiency in math and writing through their grade point average instead of a standardized test. These adjustments would apply through September of 2021. Leaders say it strikes a balance between maintaining quality and making sure all students still have a fair shot at the school of their choice.
We pride ourselves on being an open access state. It's one of our key priorities as a system. However, we want to make sure students are prepared. And I believe that this method of applying to our campuses still meets that commitment to college preparation.
Students will still need a ACT or SAT score in order to qualify for some state merit scholarships. Well, some inmates across Montana who have committed nonviolent crimes have been released due to COVID-19. The Montana Supreme Court has denied a request to release even more. Last month, Chief Justice Mike McGrath sent a letter to courts asking them to review what prisoners could be released. Disability Rights Montana and American Civil Liberties Union attorneys argued that state prisoners with disabilities are at risk. Now, that brief states that some of the actions at jails, prisons, and houses of correction have been inadequate. This week, the court disagreed, saying the governor's directive and CDC interim guidance best addresses the current crisis. Attorney General Tim Fox says those running jails and prisons take care of the inmates.
They have done very well in protecting Montanans, and particularly inmates and detention staff. So we were somewhat surprised that the ACLU filed a lawsuit just a few days ago on behalf of Disability Rights Montana, seeking to force the state of Montana to release literally hundreds of inmates who are in jail or prison. The Montana Supreme Court issued a unanimous 7-0 decision denying the petition for extraordinary writ filed by the ACLU, and really pointing out that what they had alleged and claimed was not supported in fact or in law.
All right, turning to Chief Forecaster Bob McGuire. Bob, we woke up to a little surprise snow this morning. Hopefully we're about done with that. But you've got the totals for the year.
Yeah, we thought we got that 1 inch of snow. And we thought, well, okay, how are we doing for year to date? And here's what we wound up with. Take a look at this. Here in the Billings area, we've had 52.9 inches of snowfall this year. Now, the area highlighted in the yellow box, that shows you where we stand, is related to average or year to date averages. And so in Billings right now, we're at just about 3 inches ahead of normal for this time of year. Last year at this date, we were at 60 inches, so we're a little bit behind there. You notice Glasgow, that's GGW. They were at 35.6 inches. They're also a little bit ahead of average. But the big winner, look at Great Falls. 99.6 inches of snow, almost 100 inches of snow this year. They're 43 inches ahead of normal. Havre doing well is also 74.7 inches so far this year, 38.5 inches ahead of normal. And Bozeman, they're at 69.4 inches. They're 35 inches ahead of average so this year. It's been a very snowy year across the west, but not so much back here in the Billings area. And I'm good with that. We'll have more in your forecast for the weekend in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob. Montana has more than 250 sexual assault kits in backlog that still haven't been tested. The Sex Assault Kit Initiative Task Force held a conference call today to discuss future funding of those kits and training for law enforcement. Now, through their work, more than 1,200 untested rape kits that were submitted to Montana agencies before 2016 have all been tested. The current number of untested kits come from the period between 2016 and the enactment of Senate Bill 52 in 2019. That bill required all sexual assault evidence kits submitted to Montana crime labs to be tested. The Montana Department of Justice is currently working on a grant proposal that would fund that task force through September of 2023. Still to come on tonight's 10 o'clock news, it may not seem like it, but Campaign 2020 is heating up. We're going to check in on one important race that you'll be making a decision on. Plus, a veteran approaching his 100th birthday, still giving healthcare workers a million reasons to smile. We'll explain. And in sports, a former Bobcats basketball star chasing his pro dreams while staying here in Montana. Scott will have the details.
You're watching MTN News with Janelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.